Jeez, man, making me look bad. I didn't know it was his.
No, it wasn't his. He didn't earn it. He got his chicken nuggets, his burger, his fries, but he didn't earn a treat today. So maybe tomorrow's a new day.
Bring him over. Yeah. I'm on. Just waiting for the people.
Sorry.
That's the heavy one.
Yeah, I know.
¿De dónde son?
Somos de 3 diferentes países.
¿En serio?
México y
Sí. Venezuela.
Venezuela.
Ella es venezolana.
Ajá. ¿No ve? ¿De qué parte?
De Caracas.
¿De qué parte? ¿De qué colonia? Hace tiempo cuando... De Caracas, de Latillo. ¿No conoces?
Yo me mudé aquí cuando tenía 7 años.
Oh. ¿Y dónde viviste?
En Caracas, en la Candelaria.
Oh, mi papá. Bueno, solo Candelaria.
Sí, ¿tu papá todavía está allá? Yo también, mi mamá.
Jaden.
Ahora no solo en el agua, porque ya se le lleva el agua por 3 días a la semana.
Sí.
Sorry, I think I have my volume off.
De todo.
Un compañero de trabajo. Mi esposo está trabajando.
Sí, me
Ahora
dijo.
con esto empieza
Sale
a
hasta las 11 de la noche.
How are you?
Good, sorry. Grab my headphones, got some people over.
Gracias. El chat está apagado.
Sí, sí, sí.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Sí, ya saben.
No. Mejor, gracias.
We just sold a washer dryer. My grandma and grandpa just got super bad health all of a sudden out of nowhere. So it's basically an estate sale. And they gave us their washer and dryer out of the blue. And it's like a brand new $3,000 washer dryer set. And it
Oh, wow.
was like 2 inches too big for a laundry room because we live in a condo.
Oh,
Trying to sell something like that on Craigslist and KSL, it's just like no one wants to pay more than a few $100.
yeah,
It's terrible.
it is. They go on those sites for like a crazy bargain.
So yeah, we only got 500
Kind of
out of it.
marketplace on Facebook too.
Yeah, we listed it pretty high, and everyone was just like, "We'll give you 400." It's just like, this is worth like $2,500. They bought it like 6 months ago.
Wow.
But oh well,
Oh, yeah.
it's not my money. So
And give me 2 seconds.
20 minutes to shower. What else did I do?
Did you email the link as well?
I didn't. I can.
Did you do your reading?
Yeah, because I think even though I went in and looked at the place that we're supposed to put the link, I think maybe a lot of the other ones depend on it being emailed.
What?
She said
Oh, 20 minutes, because then you do 15 minutes to shower, and you just stood in the shower, and then I gave you 5 more minutes to wash your hair and your body.
Yeah, they're all
So 20 minutes.
answering. They're all texting, writing right now, asking if you're even doing it. Has anybody heard from him?
She was using a timer.
So you might want to respond on the email.
There's an email. I'm not seeing an
Yeah,
email.
our group email that we have in BYU Outlook,
Yeah.
where we also
Alright.
post our video link.
see what else. Oh, I bought you Wendy's.
There we go. I think Martin probably just posted it for me.
I'll write the stuff that was on.
Let's see.
Did you say that you washed your body off?
Yeah. No hand
I'll
towel.
put something on there.
Come on, it wasn't 2 seconds. I just told you my grandma was here. And we timed 15 minutes and then we timed 5 more minutes.
I mean,
Yeah. So we can call my grandma when Haley's here and she can tell her like
I hope that was yours and not them making one.
minutes, which I put to 20 minutes. So no
It
hand
is
towel
different, it looks like.
because
Yeah, because they didn't think you were doing it. So I think they made their own.
Okay.
This shirt.
Ugh.
But I told him you posted it on the link on the case study.
Anything else you want to add to the list? No, I already told you
Because
that.
technically that's where we're supposed to post it.
Right.
But I know that they also always email it out. That's probably why they were
Yeah.
looking for it.
This shirt.
That's where I initially looked for it.
We will let her know. I'll keep this up here so we can keep adding to the list. Okay? That'd be great.
I don't know why, but every single time, it seems like every time the video or link gets posted, I'm always on the screen and I'm like looking crazy.
Obviously,
Like the video's frozen right on my face and I'm making this
Oh,
funny face.
it gets posted in the discussion.
well, that's too bad. I do. I want people to see it so they can see what you decided to name and tell Haley about. I heard that. I don't have any problem with that.
you erase
Nope. Nope. Because you freak out about that time, so we're gonna talk to Haley about that. That's something I'm gonna talk to Haley about.
Hey, Joanne.
I'm gonna talk to Haley about you.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, that'll be a good.
I'm freaking awesome right now. I'm so happy.
Why? What's
I
going
just-
on?
Well,
You have no time.
What's her name?
no, I'm engaged, bro.
He's engaged to someone.
Ah, sweet.
Well, she makes me happy too, but I
I
just
so.
switched my auto insurance. This is gonna sound like a commercial right now.
I can't hear Julian again.
Dude, I have no idea what's going on with that.
I can hear you just fine.
That's weird.
So I was paying $300 a month for Geico insurance for auto.
That's crazy.
And I switched to USAA just now because my dad's in the military, and
Woo-hoo.
I pay $166 a month now.
Yeah, I've been with USAA for the last like 20 years, and I can't find anybody that beats their price. And
That's
I've looked over the last
still
20 years.
expensive, Julian. Why is it still that expensive? Do you have like 1,000 tickets?
I've got a ticket every year for the past 3 years, and just one ticket. But then I originally got quoted. So I have an accident that's actually going to drop off here in October, and if that accident wasn't there, I'd be paying $120 a month. And so, yeah. But give it six more months. We'll be good.
That's crazy.
Yeah, Geico really took me on a run. But
I'm on Geico and I pay like $55 for me and my wife a month. So
It also
cheap.
matters the coverage that you have and the age that you are and the type of vehicle you have.
and I'm a perfect driver. No marks on my record. So
oh really? Oh dude, yeah,
perfection.
you're set, man.
Yeah.
Down to 4 minutes.
Yeah, I'm very not. I'm the
Spot
opposite.
record.
So.
All right.
Wait, Julia, you said who's in the military in your family?
So I started under my father. So I guess I've been with him more than 20 years. I started under my father. He's retired. Army. And then my husband was in the Navy, so I switched over under his
Nice.
plan in the Navy. Yeah.
That's cool.
So we've been with USA. We have everything with them. Like we even do our stocks with them. But we have, you know, our house, all of our farm equipment,
Nice.
everything with USA.
Well,
And we own 4 houses, and they're all with USAA.
nice. That's
Yeah.
cool.
At one time, we did have traveler's insurance for one of our rental houses, and we weren't even living there. This house is down in Texas. And I called to ask about, I can't remember, something that needed to be fixed in the house. And they were like, oh, well, we need to update our records on your renter. And so they started going through questions. And so they asked a question about, what was it? No, it wasn't even about our renters. It was about us. And they asked what type of dogs we had. And we lived at this time, I think, in Colorado Springs. And we had an American Staffordshire Terrier. We had a better, you know, people know it as a pit bull. And they dropped our coverage. And it wasn't even, like, the pit bull wasn't even at that house. That house, the coverage that they had was in Texas, at our house in Texas. We lived in Colorado Springs. We weren't there. The dog wasn't there. But they said it was, they carry nobody who has a pit bull on their coverage because it's a liability.
Wait, this is USAA?
No, this is Travelers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh my
And so
gosh.
then we dropped them, of course, completely. Like, I was like, we won't do anything with them. And then we went over to USAA, who obviously didn't have an issue with it.
Yeah,
I
that's killer.
was still shocked. That's like 10, 15 years ago, and I'm still shocked. That they did.
Well, I guess
Yeah.
enough about insurance, but we are blessed.
My wife, the 1-year-old, has been constipated all day, and we just gave him prune juice. And my wife just gave me the look, and I'm never been more happy to be on a call like this. Thank you all very much. Do we have any volunteers for the prayer?
Sure, I'll say the prayer.
All right.
Our dear, most kind and gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, and we thank you for the numerous blessings that thou hast provided to us. We are extremely grateful that thou hast allowed us to meet together today as a class and to fellowship and share in the knowledge and the Spirit. We ask thee to help us to stay keen to the teachings and keep our goals and the things that we have learned in our minds. We ask for guidance and protection every day, we pray. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Okay. So, did anyone have any thoughts about this case? Did you guys like it or not like it?
I think it was my least favorite.
Me too. I did not enjoy it much.
It was hard to BS everything.
I actually, I didn't have like, it was definitely boring, but one thing, like, I was actually able to tell my mom about this today because she's having a problem with her employer, and I was kind of just mentioning like Pat Cardullo and Jamie Turner's situation, and I kind of was able to, like, it was weird, I don't know, but it was kind of cool to be able to liken this case study to my mom, help her out. But yeah,
I thought that it was a case study that we can relate to real life, because I think this happens a lot.
Yeah.
right.
So I thought it, I thought that it was a good one that can be very relatable to us or to situations that happen.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking the same thing. I just got out of a job that, like, I took it because I felt like I was on the fast track, and it reminded me of Jamie Turner. And, like, taking it, I knew, like, this job's going to be stressful and hard. And after a year or year and a half, it was just like, this isn't worth it. Wanted out. So it did remind me of myself of just the many times in the case that he said, you know, I'm unhappy. I feel the pressure. I'm, you know, kind of feeling the stress.
Mhm.
Right.
Cool. So let's see here. Okay. So question one, what are the root problems in the case? What do you guys think was Jamie's biggest problem? What was Pat's biggest problem?
Well, I think I focused more on Turner, on Jamie, mainly because the case study asked us to be an advisor to him. And so I focused more on that than the whole problem, what Pat contributed to the problem. And so with one of the things that I thought that Jamie had an issue with was he created animosity towards coworkers, because there's a part in there where he even says that when he was looking back at his time with the other company, he admitted that he judged them. He judged them very harshly. He thought he was above them because he had a higher degree than them. And he even said that he admitted that he caused performance issues within that company. So I think it's a time for Jamie to look at himself internally. But that was one of the root causes, is that he already has a history of causing animosity within a team.
I agree with you. I don't think it's a lot of external forces. I think Jamie has a lot of problems that need resolved. He hasn't really succeeded other than, you know, raises and stuff. He's kind of bounced around from job to job and hasn't really found his niche. So anyone else?
I mean, he was with the one company for, you know, a long time, with Wolf for a long time. And then the other one he was with shortly just because of the financial problems that the company got into. But at that company, he did have problems and later admitted to the fact that he caused some of the problems.
Yeah, and then, I mean, he fired a few people right off the bat, and I don't know. Sure. Go for it, Jared.
I was going to say, my assessment on this was a little bit different. While, you know, Jamie is definitely not without fault here, I put most of the problem on Cardullo. This is somebody who has split loyalties between Triple S and MLI. Even his bosses for Triple S told him to stay and work with MLI full time, but he's splitting his time between the two, which is coming to a complete lack of leadership there. I agree, Jamie is, quite frankly, not up to the task. I think he should have stayed with Wolf River a bit longer and learned a few more of those tried and true methods, which he was bemoaning having to implement over and over. However, I think if he took some of those methods and put them in place here, it would help him to get some more success going. Also, it looks like you've got two different teams here. You've got Team Cardullo and Team Turner. Cardullo's got Chin, who is, you know, almost sycophantal in her agreeing with everything that he says, and just trying to back him up to a point. Backing him up to a point is good, but as a controller, you need somebody in there who can give a more realistic interpretation of what's going on. I believe it's Swanson or something said that there was some real cash flow issue problems, and you know, I really would have drilled down on that. I was really surprised that that was dismissed out of hand. Also, the fact that Cardullo is giving Jamie just enough power to do stuff, but not enough where he'll back him up on anything. He tries to get something going, and then he's undermining his decisions, which makes Jamie look weak to the people he's working with and doesn't allow him to move in a direction. There's nothing worse than taking the plan halfway. You know, you're not far enough to see if it works or doesn't work. It's just enough to cause confusion. which basically saying it again boils down to a power structure issue. And then the last one is there's no real timeline or production sales goals. It's just kind of a moving target. They're not saying, hey, we want to hit this number in this time, and were we on that path? I mean, as a real quick example, when he was selling I think it was halogen lights or whatever, basically break even or just under. And then Cardullo got mad at him for that. Well, there are pluses and minuses to doing that. Maybe he's taking a short-term hit on the front end to free up some operating capital to, maybe, I don't know, buy some generators to go in a different direction later. There's the cost of doing it and then the cost of not doing it. But right now, just these two seem to be fighting for power, which is strange because I thought he was being groomed to take his position. So I would put most of the problems at the feet of Cardullo because, quite frankly, he's the president and he's the one who should be keeping this straight.
Yeah. Jared, I would absolutely agree with you. And typically I do look at the leadership and their skills and what they're doing to cause the issue. And the only reason why I was focusing on Turner was just because I'm a third party advisor to Turner. And so I didn't want to point out to Turner as an advisor what Pat's doing, an external element that he can't change. So that's why I was focusing on Turner and what his issues were and what he can do to try to contribute or change it. But no, I agree that Pat needs to take a larger accountability role on this, and especially as the leader. He has a lot of things he needs to work on.
No, I agree. But if I was coming in as a consultant to Cardullo, he's the person that I had the responsibility to. I'd clearly let him know what he's doing wrong. One thing I actually put in my write-up on this, based on the fact he can't even get a lunch with this guy, or after work drinks, as they said, I would make every communication with him via email so it was documented what I'm trying to do and Cardullo's lack of response or lack of action, just to cover my backside, because at some point this is going to go before the CEO and I can go back and say, hey, look, I have done everything I can. This is what I've communicated. As you can see, there's no clear goals. There's my authority has been undermined on these different directions I'm trying to go. He put in this, asinine pricing structure that has nothing to do with how things are actually moving. So with the tools I've been given, this is what I've been able to achieve. And, once again, like I said, I would do everything via email with that guy just to make sure I was covered.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did think that was interesting. I think he said he tried to go after drinks and then lunch several times. And I would think that Cardullo would have the same train of thought of the CEO's coming to town and we got a real problem on our hands. Let's hash it out. But he chooses to go to lunch with other coworkers and, doesn't seem like the most important thing this time. Martin, Julian, do you have anything to add on that question?
I totally agree with Pat Cardullo being the common denominator in all the issues that are, not all of the issues, but in the issues that are like the big ones that are in play. And so I agree completely with everything you said. Just to add, the fact that it was mentioned multiple times that, he's gone half the week. And other employees around the office have noticed that he isn't even there. They don't even really have a boss going right now. And so that was just an observation that I had on top of the other things that you guys said, but I completely agree. And Jamie Turner, for me, I think Jamie, he has some things to work on with his attitude. Crumpling up an email right in front of the person that sent it to you, telling them you got it isn't the best way to diffuse a situation, And so those are my thoughts on that. Adding to what you guys said.
All right, we'll go to the next one. Next question is we've kind of covered it. How did Turner get himself into this predicament? What is going on for Cardullo? I don't think we need to hit on that much more, other than, you know, I guess we've talked a lot about what Cardullo is doing wrong, and not as much about what Pat or Jamie did to get into this predicament, like it says.
Yeah.
What was his biggest mistake, I guess, do you guys think, of getting to where they are now?
Jamie's or Pat's?
Jamie's.
Jamie's just in over his head right now. I mean, he's what, by my calculation, about 6 years out of graduate school.
Yeah.
The only place he's been truly successful is somewhere where it was regimented and mapped out so tightly he almost couldn't fail. Anywhere that he's been in charge, he's been very underwhelming in his performance.
Yep.
That's
What
kind
was
of what I think as well. He's just not cut out for this.
Yeah.
That
There
being
was a-
said, oh, go ahead.
There was one moment where Pat and Jamie took a turn for the worst. And for some reason, I can't recall that moment right now. But was it on like a sales decision, or was it? I know he started undermining all of his.
It was selling the bulbs at break even, or just
The
below.
Okay.
halogen bulbs, yeah.
Right. So that, I think, like, that was definitely a breaking point, but I don't think he made a mistake there.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Like, because his point of view, he didn't want to lose the customer. I can finally hear everyone. I switched to my phone tonight. I could only hear Julian, and I could only hear two of you. But now it's great. I can hear everyone. But I'm with you because, you know, his mindset was he didn't want to lose the customer. So selling them at cost, like, yeah, they didn't make money, but if maybe they would have completely lost that. And I think that there could have been better communication and understanding on, hey, the whys behind each decision.
I think he did the right thing, but I think he did it the wrong way. They said earlier in the case study that Cardullo wanted to keep control over big orders, if I remember correctly.
Mhm.
And I'm guessing if you're clearing out an entire section of inventory, especially at a loss, that's a big order. You'd probably want to run up the chain before you execute it.
Oh,
Yeah.
the other thing, Jared, do you remember the meeting that they were in? And he said, hey, I want all of the warehouse reorganized this way so that I can walk through and see everything. But
Yeah.
Turner was like, no, I don't think that's going to cost a lot of money. And, you know, with the situation or with the technology we have in place, we don't need to do
was
that.
kind of a, yeah.
Yeah, and Cardullo, like, I don't think he stormed out, but he was definitely visibly mad at that comment because I think that was another thing. I mean, again, I don't think it was his mistake. I think it was a very cost-effective decision, but
Actually, I don't remember him sort of going the opposite direction on that. I remember him saying, I can see the benefits of both. The only concern he brought up, if I remember correctly, was the cost of transitioning over. So, you know, he really didn't take a position one way or the other. He just brought up one of the cost concerns.
right. But what I'm saying was Cardullo was upset.
Cardullo seems to be one of those guys that's just spring-loaded to the pissed-off position. That's just the type of
He's always
attitude I
upset.
get from him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Looking back at that line, it says, put on the spot, Turner responded he didn't see a problem with either alternative, but the real issue was the incremental costs that would arise from a changeover. Cardullo ordered Dennis to change the system within a month. Yeah. So I kind of agree with you. Like, he had the chance to kind of side with Cardullo there, even though I think it was a dumb idea and kind of didn't. He kind of said, yeah, we could, but it's just going to cost money.
But that's his job. His job's not to be yes man. His job's to take a look and
Yeah.
give his
Or not Jamie, Julie.
accurate assessment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was another fork in the road for him where they got further apart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, my kid's crying.
It's okay.
Okay. What did Pat Cardullo and Jamie Turner each initially bring to the situation at MLI that would seem to ensure success failures? This was one of the, cut from the case study questions. What did each one bring that made you think they would succeed, made you think they would fail? So what did you guys write in your case studies? Did you touch on that topic?
I feel like I haven't said much tonight, so I'll take what my initial thoughts were. For me, I talked about this in, I think, my situation analysis. It talked about how Cardullo is very one-minded, and like to quote it, he says he's also expressed a strong opinions about how to run a business, and he said that people are either competent or incompetent. He basically said there's no middle ground. You either can do it or you can't. And I think that like if I was interviewing with someone and I saw that right away, for me, like as an interviewee, that would be a huge red flag. Like, hey, if this guy's going to be my boss and I make one mistake early on, he's just going to think, hey, you're incompetent, you can't do it, and that's going to be how he's going to view you for the rest of your time. And we saw that with Jamie pretty early on.
Right.
Yeah, that's good. Jamie came into it a lot, though, thinking he knew more than his leader. There was a time in there that he declared, what did he say? There were times that he declared that he knew more than Pat. And there may be times that you do know a little bit more than your boss, but there's a reason why your boss is in that role and you're not at that point. And then Turner was very reluctant to a lot of his leadership advice and instructions. It seems like his guard was up too. I mean, Pat's guard was always up, it seems like, but Turner was also reluctant and pushed back a lot. And it's in the way you push back. So it's not that you should be like a Julie and be like a puppet and all this and agree with everything, but it's also in the nature and in the way that you push back.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of took it as, pre everything, what made it, going into the situation, what made you think it would succeed or fail? And it just seems like Turner already had a lot of reservations before even starting about things that were stressing him out, worries back of his mind. It just didn't seem like it was a sure fit. But on the other hand, I mean, he had a lot of education. That's what made me think he would succeed. He had education, some good experience, 6 years in the workplace, postgraduate degree. Pat Cardullo seems like he's been around the block. He's the president of Triple S, and seems like he should know what he's doing. But, that was my thoughts about, is this going to succeed or fail? Oh, bubbles everywhere.
The original question was Jamie Turner and Pat Cardullo, what are their initial mistakes? Is that correct?
No, what do they initially bring to the situation that would make you think it's going to succeed or fail?
Okay. Yeah, I think in Jamie's position, my thoughts were, okay, you've been this is your third job in 6 years. I'm thinking back to the stock case study or the stockbroker case study where the guys, you choose a job and you're there for 10, 15 years, sometimes 20 years, whatever. And, and if he was applying for that position, he would never get the job, kind of thing. But in this position, I'm not sure how many jobs people have. Obviously, it sounds like he's worried about it. So I would imagine that changing somewhat isn't a good. So that's my initial thought. Like, okay, does he have the experience he needs to take on the job that he's going to take on? And it seemed like he was doing well until Pat started taking away his decision-making power. So, what was it? You know, he brought to the table, he was able to increase sales for a while there, right? At least in the 6 months he was there. So he definitely brought that to the table. So that's good. I mean, with Pat, he's definitely had a lot more experience. He's with being the MLI's president, but you know, he's kind of double dipping between Triple S and MLI and not spending too much time. And so I think he needs to decide which way he wants to go.
Did anybody think it was kind of odd the way Pat got put in there with MLI? Basically, he was thrown in because he's the only one who thought that acquisition was good.
Oh, the company, like Triple S was like, hey, just go do MLI because you think you can do it.
Yeah, I just makes me wonder what's going on, you know, on the other side there that they didn't give us any information about.
Yeah,
that's a good point. I hadn't thought of that.
Maybe the real person here to look at is Alan Oliver, the CEO of Triple S.
CEO, yeah.
Yeah, there's something to be said there. However, for all the information we've been presented, whether or not Alan's in there, Cardullo is assuring its failure.
Right.
Okay. We've talked a little bit about this as well. What were the key choice points where either of them could have done things differently? Again, that was one of the questions in the case study. I thought there were several. It seemed to me like it became irreparable when Cardullo took back the pricing in August, and Turner basically fought him on the decision of the straight 24% markup. And I think it says in the case study, like he voiced as vocally or, you know, as vehemently as he could, and Cardullo just ignored him and said, this is what I'm doing. And then it was a disastrous month, and then Cardullo disappeared and he couldn't get in touch with him, and communication was gone at that point. I think that was a key choice point, that at that point they could have sat down and repaired things still. And that's a decision Cardullo made, because Turner, it does say I think this is a bad idea. We're going to lose on our high-end sales. We're going to lose on our high-volume sales. We need to not do this, and then it got ignored. But what did you guys write for your key choice points, or if you touched on that at all?
I just want to follow up on what you were saying there. Does anybody have any insight into what drove this? I mean, this is a guy who's a president of the Triple S's mobile lighting or whatever it was. You know, this is not this guy's first rodeo. What on earth motivated him to use this approach here? I mean, it makes reason stare. It's almost like he's trying to intentionally submarine this division.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any different thoughts?
That's a good point.
You know, there's a lot of times there's leaders who you're so shocked at how they made their way up and how they got to the position that they're in with the interpersonal skills they have. And he may be just one of those that, you know, his numbers look good. You know, there's certain things that look good, so he's made it up the ladder. But his leadership skills are very much lacking.
It does seem like an easy choice. And I wrote about that in my case study of he's already looking for his predecessor, or his, whatever you'd call that. Yeah, predecessor maybe? No,
Successor.
He is the predecessor. Successor. He's already one foot out the door in my mind, and he's trying to push responsibility to Turner early. And then he takes this back and he says, that's the feeling I got from it. I'm not dealing with this. Mark everything up 24%. It's easy. I don't know. It didn't go into much of why he thought that was a good idea, and Turner certainly presented good arguments for why it was a bad idea. So I don't know.
I'm amazed that grocery stores can figure this out. You sell whatever, Pepsi is a loss leader. You take a 5-cent loss on that, but people come in to get that and buy, hamburger, eggs, and milk. What? This doesn't seem like it's a real sophisticated point to consider here.
Right. Here's your low margin items that you could, only make a couple cents on. He's trying to make 10 cents on it. And it just doesn't make sense. Literally.
So lame.
I liked it.
Okay. And the last question is, how, if at all, should Turner approach Cardullo at the end of the case?
Walk out.
Via email. That's the only way I'd talk to that guy.
Paper trail.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, they're paper trail for sure, but the last sentence of the case is, he hears the footsteps of his boss coming to talk with him. So, I mean, it's going to be a conversation. What does he say? Does he quit? Does he?
The first thing I do, if the guy's actually giving me FaceTime after I've been trying to have lunch with him for a couple of days, I'd say clearly there's a communication breakdown. You've expressed how important that is to you. It is to me also. I need some clear guidelines of what you're looking for. I want to perform. Lack of desire here is not the issue. I just don't know what it is you want. I think I'm doing what you want. Then you come in and make decisions contrary to what I thought was best. So clearly I don't know what you want. Enlighten me.
Well, he tried to do that on a plane ride, right?
And it actually went pretty well on the plane ride. It didn't follow through, but he got good response.
Right. And that might just go well for him if he was able to put it that way with his boss the second time. I remember though at one point he said that it was he was doing everything that he wanted him to do and just keep doing what he's doing, basically, right? That's what Pat said to
Yeah,
Jamie.
well, he asked him for some feedback, and that's the type of feedback he gave him.
So, yeah, him approaching him and saying, hey, obviously this isn't going right. I'd imagine Pat might just come back and say, oh, no, everything's good. Just do what you're doing, but he might not let him in,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good way to start, is kind of be vulnerable and say, hey, what are you thinking of this? But, I mean, the last paragraph of the case study says he's making notes of issues. He's got his laundry list ready to go. So I think if Cardullo were to say, I think we're all good. Oh, I don't think we're all good.
I think, yeah, calling him out, like Kathy in the book, Catherine,
And
that.
what are we doing? Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the plan?
Yeah. Not being fearful to have those, not arguments, but, being open and being honest and say, well, you're saying that everything's fine, but it's obviously not. So let's get this out and let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Something
Hard conversation.
Something that just occurred to me on this is, trying to sit back and take a macro view at it on the things that don't make sense. Hitting the pricing structure again, which is ensuring failure. Being made aware of the cash flow issues that Swenson brought up, and then completely dismissing that out of hand. And I'm also looking at the transition that Cardullo thinks he's making, moving up. it almost appears, get my tinfoil hat ready, that he's almost engineering failure, not out of competence, but out of willful intent. I couldn't imagine for what reason. Maybe it'll affect the stock prices, and he can buy in cheap and then make changes. But there's too many things here that don't make sense.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, that is the last question. Professor, do you have anything you want to add to our discussion? I know you've been in and out.
Yeah, I've got a couple other meetings going at the same time. Well, you've already alluded to a little bit to this, but I would just say, and maybe you've discussed it in detail, but from your reading from the 5 dysfunctions, what application do you see from that to this situation? I know we just mentioned one.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest one that I mentioned that stood out to me, is that they're not having that honest and open and calling each other out on things.
There's a company called Menlo Innovations. It's a software development company. And the CEO is a guy named Richard Sheridan. And he's really an interesting guy. If you're interested in any of this organizational stuff, he's really a good one to take a look at. Within their organization, and this kind of goes to your point, Julia, about calling them out, but he doesn't phrase it that way. He said that when they have, and they preach this as part of their corporate culture or with everybody, that when there's a conflict or a misunderstanding or whatever name you want to put on it, that everyone is encouraged to ask this question. And it sounds very simple, but if you think about it, it has the potential of opening some doors. And the question is everything okay? And so what's the assumption or assumptions behind that question?
That something's clearly wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that perhaps this guy or gal or whoever you're talking with, they wouldn't be saying or doing or acting or whatever the way they are if things were right, whatever right means. Maybe there's something else going on. And so coming back to the point of calling them out, that's sort of a soft approach of calling them out. And then, so what do you say if the answer comes back, yeah, everything's good. Everything's good. Or in the case of just keep doing what you're doing. So what's your retort to that if that's the answer?
Well, I would probably continue to be open and continue to say, well, these are the issues that I see. If I'm wrong in them, please let's have an open discussion about it.
Yeah, and that's the approach that Sheridan would take at Menlo, is to keep peeling the onion. Well, you say nothing's wrong, but there's these couple things that are evidence that maybe there's something going on.
Yeah.
Can you tell me more about that? You may have to ease into that conversation instead of being super confrontive about it. And it all obviously depends on the level of trust you have with the person you're dealing with. But it's a worthwhile concept to consider.
Yeah, definitely. There was an incident about a month ago at where I work, where I had a leader who was a great leader, and he got along with the people on his team, and he'd come a long way in his leadership skills from where he started. And so he had a team member on his team that was a great team member that got very high scores of engagement. And when it comes to his fellow team members, they said great things. When it came to guests, they said great things. But for some reason, that leader and that teammate, the team member just butted heads. I mean, they just couldn't get along. And it got to the point where I said, we've tried all these other approaches. You guys are both just going to come into my office and we're going to have a talk. We're going to get it out. We're going to find out what the root problem is.
We call that a come to Jesus meeting.
And they did open up finally. We got it all out and we talked about what the root problem was. And it wound up being something that was like, really? That's what you're upset about? And they each came around to it and was like, I didn't even mean it that way. And the other one was like, well, you said it. And it actually happened where he said something, a comment, while his wife was there at work. And then it just snowballed from there. And they have a great relationship now. But what it took was to just sit there together at a round table and let's just have this difficult conversation right now. Let's talk about it.
And, you bring up a good point, because seek first to understand isn't necessarily a warm and fuzzy experience.
No.
And hopefully it will maybe morph into that, but there may be some tough conversations that go into that process. So, yeah.
If you're truly seeking to understand, you have to be prepared for your feelings to maybe get hurt.
And I guess I have one other point I would add to that. And I'm sure most of you can relate to this on some level. And it's kind of this couplet. There's a big difference between putting your nose in someone's business and putting your heart in someone's problems. So when you ask that question, is everything okay? It's got to be coming from a place where you really are concerned and want to know if there's something you can do to help. And if you're not coming from that place, 9 times out of 10, the other person will sense that. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't go very far.
Yeah.
I really like that. I've never heard that quote, but that saying, really like that. Well,
do you have any questions about next week before I log out?
Let me.
I haven't looked too far into next week.
Yeah, you meet together. You meet together, and you each take turns presenting your accountability project experience. Make a report.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see that we have the accountability project and then the 360 instructions. So we're going to meet together again next week. And that, when we turn in that video, will that be that's our final?
Your final, there's those questions that are listed there. And
okay.
That you turn that in and also speak to them in the meeting with each other.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for explaining that.
And it's, in order to get a grade on that accountability project, everyone needs to make a presentation. So make sure you're at the meeting. You guys are good about that, but just to reinforce that point.
Sorry, it cut out a little bit for me. Could you repeat that last part?
In order to get a grade for the accountability project, you have to participate in the group meeting and make your presentation.
Okay.
Do we need to plan on like a certain amount of time for a presentation, or is it just?
That's up to you.
Okay. Got it.
Some people, not very many, but some people get real fancy and do PowerPoint stuff, and
But that's not required.
that's not necessary. But if you want to, you can. And it's addressing those questions and points that are in the assignment.
Okay.
And then
Yeah, I don't think our group has a problem sharing our opinions.
yeah, and obviously there might be some questions people ask. So,
For sure.
great. Well, hang in there for another week.
Just
Been enjoyable.
It's been great to be with you a little bit.
Thank you.
See ya.
Bye.
And then as soon as
All right,
finals are
everybody.
done, my
One
wife and
more
I go to
week.
Italy.
Oh, fun. Fun. Have you been before?
No, we went to Greece last year, and my wife's dad served in Italy, so she's wanted to go for a long time. So we're doing Rome, Venice, Florence.
You guys don't have any kids yet, right?
What was that?
You guys don't have any kids yet?
No, not yet.
So yeah, take that time to
So-
travel.
We're getting all the bugs out. We have a cruise booked for later this year too. It'll come though.
Yeah, my husband and I, we were married for, goodness, we waited 8 or 9 years before we had our first child. And we did that. Of course, we both were in the defense world. So we both were overseas together.
Yeah.
And so we were already over there. So we would backpack through a country and go on a
Awesome.
cruise. Like we went on like 4 or 5 cruises before we had a kid. And then
Yeah.
after the kid, it's like nothing.
Yeah.
3 kids later, nothing. No family vacation. Fun
That's
stuff.
exciting.
Enjoy yourself.
That's depressing. That's not exciting.
Depressing, Jaden.
As you can hear the kids screaming.
It'll get better, Jaden. It'll get better.
Well, I'll let you guys go.
Okay, bye.
Have a good
See you
night.
next week.
Bye-bye.
Okay. See you guys.